Previamente, con cena con corredores.
What are we going to see? What's Havana like?
The engine is a Russian gas 53.
You've gotten to work with Kanye West,
Conan O'Brien.
Who would you say is the most incredible person you've ever gotten to meet?
Manuel Nunez.
Who's Manuel Nunez?
The guy who kidnapped Fangio.
Like Juan Fangio?
Juan Manuel Fangio, the racer.
The 5-time world champion.
He was kidnapped here, 1958.
In Cuba.
Exactly.
The following production was not directed by Lin-Manuel Miranda.
The world's greatest drivers gather for the 303 miles over 101 laps, with the result counting towards the World Championship. Now Fangio's leading with Collins chasing him, but reigning champion Juan Fangio holds his Ferrari in front like the master he is, and wins handsomely. Fangio's wife is here to congratulate him on a victory which has improved his chance of retaining the world title. But in his moment of triumph, he doesn't forget to say, hard luck, Sterling.
And now for Dinner with Racers with your hosts, Ryan Eversley and Sean Heckman.
Placeholder radio sound. I'm a driver and I'm very angry. The sound of a driver on the radio during a race.
All right, John, you're a big F1 fan, right?
I sure am.
So you're a big F1 fan, right?
Yeah.
Would you say you're a fan of Formula One?
I'd say yes.
Who won 46% of every F1 race they raced in? Michael Schumacher.
Is it a trick question? It's not. Michael Schumacher.
So who won 46% of every Formula One race he drove?
Well, that was Fangio, and I think it was 48% of the races.
Who won 5 world championships with 4 different teams?
4 different teams?
Who won 5 Formula One world championships with 4 different teams?
Fangio.
Name the oldest driver to ever win a world championship.
No idea.
Michael Schumacher.
Jesus. Mansell, I guess, probably?
Jesus Mansell. I gotta look that one up.
Can you name the oldest driver to ever win the world championship?
Juan Manuel Fangio. 47.
Name a world champion who did it on Continental tires.
I don't know.
Willie T. Ribs.
I don't know the answer to that one either. Ryan Eversley.
Nice.
I mean,
I'll take it, yeah. Who's the only world champion to win a world championship on Continental tires?
Fangio again.
Can you name a driver who was kidnapped as part of a revolutionary government takeover?
Oh.
Can you name a driver who was kidnapped as part of a revolutionary government takeover? Name a driver who was kidnapped as part of a revolutionary government takeover.
A Formula One driver? Yeah. Holy cow.
The U.S. Air Force's tour of Wings Over the Americas arrives in Cuba after nearly a month of visits and exhibitions throughout Central and South America. Spectacular aerial stunning at jet speed thrills President Batista and thousands of other spectators.
So, what was Cuba like in 1958?
In crisis, in a way.
25 years ago today,
Cuba was racked by political upheaval and revolution in 1933, just as today.
By 1958, a guy by the name of Fidel Castro, you might have heard of him, is in the mountains with a bunch of other people. As importantly, if not more importantly, his movement's urban underground is very active.
First films of Cuban rebel leader Fidel Castro and his ragged force in their mountain stronghold. This is the band, numbered at about 1,000, that for 16 months has held out in the rugged Sierra Maestre Mountains near the island's eastern tip.
It is very much a myth and a fiction that Fidel's movement, the 26th of July movement, was really only about Fidel and the guys sitting in the mountains with guns. They were a tiny number of people, and the strategy of the movement from the beginning was to get Fidel and a small number of guys in the mountains where nobody could reach them, and then have this massive revolutionary underground in the cities, which does develop pretty quickly.
One of Castro's most potent weapons has been the mimeograph. Pronouncements and propaganda have circulated throughout Cuba by pamphlets and by radio, despite secret police efforts to stamp out the underground.
A lot of very well-educated people, professionals, people you would never guess, would risk their lives to fight the regime, and they create cells of 5 to 6 to 10 people where outside of your little group you don't know who else is out there, you just know the people in your cell. And they carried out a lot of operations whose purpose was not to kill other human beings, it was to show the population that there was an opposition.
So, Cuba, 1958. What was this time like?
It was a time of crisis. It was a time of a lot of visiting Americans with bad roads. What are you guys doing? Yeah, stop. It's history class.
Buenos dias, me llamo Perez, call me Festino, top banana, Havana, clandestinos, yeah, everybody knows.
And I'm his right-hand man, Oscar Lucero Moya.
We're gonna break down some Cuban history for you, hope we don't annoy you.
Man, you and your paranoia.
Is this a musical?
To get down into this island, if you really wanna know, go back 500 years ago with Sona. Here we go.
Hang on, wait, just to get to 1958, we have to recap half a millennia?
I'm telling you.
Sáquenlos.
Kick them out.
Kick who out?
All of them, that's what we're talking about.
In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. They taught us that in school, and for the most part, it's true.
But that, guys, to say the least, a crappy neighbor. Spain conquers the island for sugar and slave labor.
This is the beginning of the conquest and the violence, and for 300 years, Spain fights England for the island.
They see us as commodities without the qualities of humans.
Independence is brewing.
Don't underestimate Cubans.
Sáquenlos.
Kick them out. The dam breaks. In 1868, first war of independence, we'll fight for what it takes.
For 30 years, we fight Spain. Off and on, we bring the pain. But what happens next becomes something of a refrain.
Here comes the USA. They go, we'll save the day.
Yeah, but no one invited you.
Hey, that's the American way. Goddamn, T.O. Sam, no one asked you to speak yet. Businesses always find a way to get their beak wet. Whose interests it serves, do you know? Can you guess? They do things in Cuba they can't do in the U.S. And American business interests agree on something paid for. Spanish-American War? Why, sure. What we waiting for?
Sáquenlos.
At the turn of the century, Cuba for 20 years builds independent democracy.
Democracy? Hey, that sounds pretty cool.
Mama didn't raise no fool.
Now how about getting out from U.S. rule?
You go back to the 1920s into the 30s. There's a guy who's been elected named Gerardo Machado. And Gerardo Machado in the late 20s, he had been elected as sort of a hopeful reformer. He then sort of figures out a way to kind of illegally extend his term in office. And when he does that, that begins to galvanize a whole series of movements against him, and his government begins to be very repressive. And so that all culminates between 1930 and 1933 in what is generally referred to as the revolution before the Cuban Revolution that we know of.
Right.
Kick him out could be our motto. A lot of people got it. Decent hating to Machado.
He's being pushed out by forces on all sides. The guy's a sinking ship not being helped by rising tides.
He's a frog in boiling water that's slowly getting warmer. And here comes a progressive in the form of a reformer. A popular movement thinks the new ruler ought to be Carlos Manuel de Cespedes Quesada.
What you get is a revolutionary regime was pretty moderate. He was looking for things like women's rights, consolidation of workers' rights, some issues with U.S. companies, and they wanted to return land to peasantries. That made them a problem for the United States.
Kick him out, you never learn. The U.S. takes a turn and it's not a slow burn. See, a Cuban progressive government with reformers in charge might get in the way of the USA whose interests are large.
What does that mean?
You know the routine. U.S. intervene.
Por favor, not the Marines.
The government, which at that point is FDR's government, found their man who could launch a coup against the revolutionary government. They didn't recognize it diplomatically, and that man was Fulgencio Batista. So after what's called 100 days, but basically January 24th, 1934, Fulgencio Batista has a military coup, and he rules through terror from 1934 until about 1938.
From 34 to 38, Batista runs the show. He's friendly with America.
Nothing is slow to flow with dough. Is it a democracy? That's what Batista says, but the army's in his pocket, even when he's not the pres.
That said, he gets elected, and when his term's through, Cuba's grown and stabilized, so what's the guy to do?
Hasta la vista, says Batista. Next thing he's up and flown along the corridor to Florida and settled in Daytona. The corridor to Florida, settled in Daytona.
He comes back in the early 50s.
After living in Daytona.
After living in Daytona, which that'll happen to anybody.
Yeah. This is not in his defense, but what was happening in the 40s was Cuba was, on the one hand, this was sort of the peak of Cuban electoral democracy and a thriving middle-class civil society, all of that, but there was a lot of corruption going on. I mean, this is sort of like famously the era when Meyer Lansky and other sort of shadowy types began to set up in Havana, which I almost hesitate to say that because there's this sort of Godfather Part 2 stereotype that that's all Havana was at that time, and it's not true.
Well, it is in this video.
It is in this video.
No, you're not going to like this.
Yeah.
Lucky Luciano.
Maya Liz.
Frank Costello.
Joe Bananas Banano. There's a fine upstanding fellow.
You want to know about Cuba? Did you come here for answers?
Or do you actually just want a bunch of mafioso-style gangsters?
Can we get back to politics?
Please! Batista runs another presidential campaign in 1952, but here's the part that's insane. His poll numbers look like poo, so what's he going to do?
He sees his power again.
Coup 2, electric boogaloo. It's true, hard to believe, but true. Yes, re-engages with who? The U.S.
And every U.S. dollar makes another Cuban baller, but the income inequality leaves many living in squalor.
The island becomes a playground for the hedonistic, but with such a wealth disparity, how long do you think can this stick?
So Batista can stage his coup, and there's a lot of people that are against him right away, but he also has a certain kind of base of support. So I think that's the immediate thing. Like, the anti-Batista thing is about this coup d'etat, this violation of democracy, but there are a lot of longer-term issues at stake. Channeled into the anti-Batista struggle are all of the frustrations that many Cubans have had with sort of what they perceive as kind of the failure of their nation to live up to its promises since it became independent.
Okay.
The sense of kind of political corruption, the sense of playing second fiddle to the United States, this sense of a nation that had fought for its own independence from Spain for 30 years and then were occupied by the U.S. military for 4 years without ever having asked. The U.S. government had the right to intervene in Cuban affairs whenever it saw fit for 30-plus years after Cuba's independence.
I'm glad we don't do that anymore.
Sáquenlos!
Are you a fan of musicals?
Not really, no.
Okay.
Absolutely not. Not even close.
So you're not a fan of Lin-Manuel Miranda, the guy that did Hamilton?
I'll give him credit.
Would you be surprised if we were to do a musical?
Absolutely not.
Okay. What if we didn't have the budget to do it? Should we do it anyway?
Yes, that's how you guys roll, man.
Castro himself has become a figure of legend in the 16 months since he invaded Oriente province from a small boat. The rebels' actual achievements were few for most of that time, but by mere existence and survival, Castro's force has both grown and exerted an influence out of all proportion to its size.
Oh, dear Lord. You made many, many poor people. I realized, of course, it's no shame to be poor. Oh, but it's no great honor either.
Fidel Castro in a nutshell, how would you describe his efforts?
A man driven and possessed by a singular goal.
Let me ask you this. Would you say he was a Fideler on the roof?
Not Jewish as far as I know. So I would say no. Yeah.
We should have checked on that.
Yeah.
Hey, Lupe, what's today's date?
26 de julio, un día significativo para la nación cubana.
So we are literally here on the national holiday of Cuba.
Es un día nacional, efectivamente, un día feriado, como decimos acá. Entonces, aunque digamos que fue un día triste porque el 26 de julio, en el asalto a Puerto Moncada, murieron muchos jóvenes.
26 de julio, 26 de julio, all the people wanna know where our country's groove has gone. More than a date, this is a movement.
So the 26th of July movement, where does that name come from?
Comes from July 26, 1953. Fidel Castro and his supporters at that time, they staged their first attempt to kind of launch the country into armed rebellion. They attack a couple of military barracks.
Batista's stench follows him wherever he goes. Me and 100 of my best amigos. We set our target not to forget in one of Batista's barracks. Our hope may be chimeric, but we'll scare them to hysterics. And if we do, a revolution will have begun. But we come under the gun. So many guns. We're not prepared. They're not scared. And few were spared.
Of the men who actually make it to the barracks, it is the vast majority of them. And we still don't know. We know there were 120 participants.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know exactly how many died. We know how many survived. And it's in the teens. You know, it's a tiny number.
Yeah.
It's like 20
Did
guys.
not go well.
Right.
When I recall my many fallen comrades, yeah, that was my bad. What a landing I had. My dad and family just influenced to squeeze a favor, pretty please, from the archdiocese. And Batista, whom the diocese will tell, to lock me in a cell instead of sending me to hell. 2 years I'm imprisoned, but a new day has arisen. To Mexico we go, an expat extradition expedition. They call me an exile, but I'll return in style. Sail back to Havana in a ship named for an Anna.
Castro and his guys train in Mexico.
Right.
And they all get on a bunch of boats. But how does this
No,
go?
not a bunch of boats.
There's
One boat.
Okay.
One boat
Okay.
called the Granma, named after someone's grandma. And it was overflowed with 80-something people. That's it. They land in Cuba's east. They're supposed to land and have it coincide with an uprising of the 26th of July movement's activists that are already there. But they're late on the boat. The uprising kind of flops. So when they land, it's a disaster, and most of them die.
Of the 82 guys, there are 19, including Fidel, who survive. And then they have to walk their way up to find each other, you know?
I mean, that sounds like a bloodbath. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hiding in the mountains, each day getting harder. Far removed from the action, they call me a martyr-ish. We must expand our reach. Who's out there in the know?
Hold up, somebody call Faustino and his band of clandestinos?
You want a revolution? With your footwork and my brains, I lay low in the mountains.
And we run the show in the plains.
You plant the seeds in the mountains.
You do the deeds in the plains.
You plant the seeds in the mountains. We'll do the deeds in the plains.
So the term clandestino literally just means clandestine, right? So
hang on.
it's 26th of July had two big wings. La Sierra, the people in the mountains, and there were people that were called El Llano, the plains, also known as the people who were clandestinos. Is that right? Like sort of urban activists.
City people, mountain people.
City people, mountain people. So it was a specific Havana-based cell of clandestinos who were tapped to do this.
There are many different strategies that they carry out where the purpose is not to plant a bomb so somebody dies. It's to plant bombs when nobody's around so that all these bombs go off simultaneously and everybody goes, whoa.
What was that? Right.
What the hell was that?
Yeah.
Notice the cadavers that are on the street that look like they've suffered torture. Who are those people? Says the 26th of July movement.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take some photographs of them
Yeah.
and let's create underground newspapers and make thousands of copies and drop them off at different apartment buildings across the island. That's the kind of thing that they were doing.
I'm unheard in the mountains.
We spread the word in the plains.
The revolution gains traction.
The people clamor for action, not gaslit by distraction. We make scenes, we make zines.
26 de julio. 26 de julio.
Buddy, best if you lie low.
Take it from someone who would know.
So you're going to hate me saying this, but you were born in 1952.
1952.
So you were born here in Cuba under the Batista regime.
Yes.
Before 1959, what was Cuba like for you growing up?
Estuve en una escuela privada que ayer pasamos cerca de allí, que le dije que era la Escuela La Luz. Y el 13 de marzo de 1957, cuando asaltaron el Palacio Presidencial y cerquita de allí en la universidad, murió José Antonio Echeverría, un joven. Yo tenía 4 años. Y recuerdo a mi mamá entrando en la escuela, no sé por qué razón, porque no podía entender. Muy nerviosa por el susto que pasó.
So literally looking outside your window in a public square is just a body on display. And that is to send a message that you have to fall in line.
It's a very bad one. Personally, I don't feel a special hate for him, either for any other man. Batista is a vain and ambitious man who could not you, would you call a democratic man to Hitler or to Mussolini? Well, Batista is like a pocket Hitler.
Everything is great!
You know, Batista, things aren't going great for him by 1957, and so certainly looking for ways to, improve his public image.
Batista, have you lost your grip?
Why have you let your power slip? Is Fidel Castro still around?
Man, that guy's dead and in the ground.
Fidel Castro has come back to the island. He's in the mountains. Batista famously says he didn't survive the landing. Then a New York Times reporter goes and finds him and proves Batista wrong, so he looks like an idiot. He has egg on his face.
Castro lives!
He lives today.
What you gonna do?
What's your next play? Castro lives. He lives today. What you gonna do? What's your next play?
So what better time than to put on a huge sports event to show to everybody outside of Cuba that everything is great?
How can your agenda thrive with Fidel Castro still alive? Castro's alive.
Did someone say drive? Sports wash! Sports wash! Bienvenidos to Cuba's Grand Prix. There's absolutely nothing else to see here.
Isn't this just one big deflection?
Let's all go on a site inspection. Look at these roads. See how they shine. Nice hotel rooms. Oh, so fine.
Shiny roads? A place to race.
Nicer rooms than a Motel 6.
The first Grand Prix and 58, both of them have the same agenda.
Yeah.
First is to build up tourism, and the second is image making.
It's gonna be great. You'll see how in control I am. It's gonna be great. We'll see just how in control you are.
If you could make it appear that everything is calm and beautiful.
Life is good.
And life is good. Then you're going to bring more tourists.
We're the Paris of the Caribbean, and that's what we'll just keep on being. We'll gain so much worldwide prestige, I'll remain the leading lead.
They could be witnesses to his own grandeur and all of his fabulous narratives about building Cuba.
Isn't this all one big distraction?
Batista's got a plan of action. Vroom!
Today, we call this sports washing.
Yes.
And that doesn't happen anymore, luckily.
Nah.
How do you feel about us doing a musical?
Oh, I'd love that. Oh, the Dinner with Racers musical. It'd be great. Especially if you could get someone like Andy Lally to be in the background chorus.
We might be able to get him because we have zero budget.
Okay.
Would that surprise you?
No, not at all.
Do you think it'd be obvious when you watch the musical that we had no budget?
Most likely.
So, back in Atlanta or Los Angeles, where Sean's from, a sports star from the 1950s isn't nearly as celebrated as it seems Fangio is here.
That makes sense because we don't have so many heroes or idols in Argentina.
Here in 2023, there's a whole new series of young fans. But when you talk about legends of Formula One with sort of a new audience, it's Senna, it's Schumacher, or it's Hamilton or Verstappen. The name Fangio doesn't come up as much anymore. Why do you think?
Because, of course, you compare with somebody that belonged to your time in life.
How big of a celebrity was Juan Fangio?
Oh, well, he was a big one because in motorsport, he was very famous around the world. National hero in Argentina also, of course.
And if you look at it, in the 50s, not every athlete played all around the world. Most of them only played regionally or in their country, but he's literally traveling the world and being extremely successful against the best the world has to offer.
So, Fernando, this is unbelievable. Where are we? What's this place called? How did you build this?
This is Fangio Museum. We are proud of this place. This is a dream come true for Fangio. This is his museum in his city, Balcarce.
What do you think it was that made him so dominant in his time in F1?
He was very clever about understanding the car and trying to take care of it. He was always very consistent every single lap, and that was extremely important on those days.
In 1957, this first Grand Prix, Juan Fangio wins. And outside of the few PR efforts by the 26 movement and other revolutionaries, like it's generally, I would say, considered a successful event.
Yes, and he had won the Paris Grand Prix. And so he wins the Paris Grand Prix, he wins
Which
the
is the event
Prix.
prior, yeah.
Right, and so the two of those go hand in hand because obviously Batista would be a beneficiary. You know, Havana is the Paris of the Caribbean.
Oh, okay.
1957, Fangio wins the first Cuban Grand Prix in this Maserati.
Yes, he was driving for Maserati in the F1 World Championship.
Did he like racing in Cuba?
Of course, because he enjoyed also the cultural part of each country. He wanted Argentina to be known in another country.
Mm-hmm.
So
racing in Cuba would be something of a unique experience, so he wanted to experience that and also provide Cubans with the opportunity to watch Fangio race.
Coming into 1958, where was Juan Fangio just in his driving career?
tired, pretty tired of racing. 20 years of doing that was enough.
By By this point, he's won 5 world titles, especially in 1957. No one's even close to having his kind of success. So he is the man, there's no doubt. So if you're thinking legacy and things like that, there's nothing left to prove.
His own words were, maybe people is tired to see me being the best. So maybe it's time.
So he's so humble that he's like, I'm boring the fans.
Is a success. So let's go bigger in 1958. We're going to make a whole sports festival that week, not just have a car race, we're going to have a title boxing match. The first ever live sporting event broadcast from Cuba to the U.S. is happening the same week. So the 26th of July movement realizes they need to make an impact for 1958. So what do they come up with?
Let's kidnap the most famous, successful, and sexiest race car driver in the world. And that would only be Fangio.
Second Cuban Grand Prix.
The tourists think we look free.
Kidnap Juan Fangio. Kidnap Juan Fangio.
Our message can't be in jest. We need to charge on the press. Kidnap Juan Fangio. Kidnap Juan Fangio.
Hey, if we shed any blood, they'll drag our names through the mud. Kidnap Juan Fangio.
Kidnap Juan Fangio.
Agreed. No blood can be shed. Don't hurt one hair on his head.
Kidnap Juan Fangio. Kidnap Juan Fangio.
He'd won his 5th world title in 1957. At this point, it almost sounded like he had considered retiring but wasn't really sure.
To win the 5th championship in 57, he needed to drive in one of the races that was Nürburgring in a way that it was absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
When he finished the race, he said to himself, this is the last time that I will drive like this. Because he knew that it was 50-50.
Yeah.
Do I keep going? Do I keep risking? Do I give in? To die a legend, or to live? Yes, to live and be the legend. Yes, the legend that time forgot, that time forgot, that time forgot.
I have to think about what I have in Argentina, his family, his business, his parents.
Am I the legend? Am I the legend that time forgot? That time forgot, that time forgot.
Hey, yo, we gotta take a stand. It's a race on our homeland.
We got one chance to make it count. Let them know what we're about.
Kidnap Juan Fangio.
Am I the legend?
Kidnap Juan Fangio.
That time
Kidnap Juan
Fangio.
Kidnap Juan Fangio.
Sports Watch! Hey, don't look over there. Sports Watch! My regime, it looks fair. Sports Watch! No suppression to fear. Sports Watch! Do I make myself clear? Sports.
Am I the legend?
Not a hair on his head.
Am I the legend?
Or the movement is dead.
Kidnap
Juan Fangio.
That time forgot.
Kidnap Juan Fangio.
That time
Kidnap Juan Fangio. Kidnap Juan Fangio.
Sports Watch. That time forgot.
Kidnap Juan Fangio. Kidnap Juan Fangio.
Kidnap Juan Fangio.
Kidnap Juan Fangio.
How do you feel about us doing a musical?
Sounds great.
I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's just one episode. It won't be the whole series.
Do you know Lin-Manuel Miranda? Made Hamilton, The Heights.
Play Hamilton.
Lin-Manuel Miranda. ¿Lo conoce?
Hamilton.
The play.
No? Okay.
The play Hamilton. The musical.
Yeah. If Lin-Manuel Miranda made a movie about this, when we meet Cuba, everyone would be singing and dancing. Is that what it's like here? Is everyone just singing and rapping and dancing all at once? Oh, so they do this. So this would be accurate.
Yeah.
So okay, but if we do a big Cuba musical number, that's okay. Everyone sings and dances.
Entonces sería todo el mundo bailando y cantando.
Aunque los cubanos bailamos y nos reímos hasta en los peores momentos.
We Cubans dance and sing and laugh in any moments, even the worst.
So it wouldn't be bad to do that.
It's not a bad idea.
What is your biggest fear doing this?
My biggest fear doing this?
Yeah.
No fear. I guess.
Oh, that's on you.
I guess that's on me.
So, the kidnapping. We feel as though there's only one person that could direct the kidnapping story. We're thinking Michael Bay.
Yeah, something about the specificity of the context, I think, and the accuracy might be lost, but it might be.
Oh, you've seen his work.
We're on a road trip.